Pencil Pow. Why hello there, art adventurers. In this episode, why hello there, Goku. Get it right. In this episode, we're going to be studying and practicing some Dragon Ball Z style. This Sketch Practice Diaries, I'll kind of take you through how I study a style in general, as well as start to figure out like what makes Dragon Ball Z so unique and so distinctive in its style. Probably my favorite anime, one of my favorite things ever growing up, and I've always wanted to be able to convey this style. So much fan art mixed in here, so we're going to go with things that look somewhat true to the original. And I think maybe this guy will be a good general starting point. This may be a fan art, but it looks pretty much distinctive to what DBZ is. And so let's start with focusing on the face. I think one of the most important things when studying a new style or expanding your art vocabulary or abilities is to narrow things down and study things one bit at a time. And so I've definitely seen enough how to draw Dragon Ball Z tutorials to see that most people start off with this kind of a vibe. And since this head is very straightforward, then that's what I'm going to do. One thing I'm going to make sure to do is to look at how the angles of the side of the face. So I'm going to really start to pay attention, and I think one of the most important things in doing studies, there's different ways to do it, but one of the best ways to do stylistic studies is to really think, to really pay attention to the angles and to the details of what you're looking at. Even if you don't get the drawing right, if you're kind of mentally understanding it, then that's a big plus. And so another thing I was looking at is like, okay, how high up are the ears? So I'm looking from this point, how high up do the ears start for this SSJ, as I used to call it, Super Saiyan Goku? They start up around here, and that's a little higher than I've seen in other, in other renditions. And it's giving me the realization that so can I go to this one and come back and not lose it? No, I think it's like kind of conveys that he's looking down, and that like looking down vibe is very much like part of the badassness. But actually, no, I'm noticing that like this one, Gohan looks like he's looking pretty straightforward, and the ears are higher up. So one thing I'm starting to realize is that the ears are a little higher up than my natural tendency to draw them will be. So that's a big thing, is to see like what are your natural tendencies, and are they like accurate or inaccurate to what the actual style conveys. And you can always like go back to your tendencies, but just having an objective understanding of that is really important. So I'm looking now at where the top of the eyebrows, and they come down a little bit lower. So I would have started them up here, but they actually seem to start maybe almost a little bit, almost like halfway to the ears. And that's at the very top, and they have quite a dramatic angle going down. And then in the middle you have like these three lines that are connected. Those are a little further apart than Goku's, so I'm going to make my thing smaller. Now these three lines, maybe I'll zoom in so I can really pay attention to what I'm doing. But let's not get too much into details, let's focus on big shapes. And then the eyebrows, I'm seeing how close they come to the side of the face. I think there's going to be, more detail in the eyebrows, but I want to just get the general idea. I see they're thinner in the middle, and then they get thicker at the edge. And then this one has a little V shape coming down a little bit right there. Something like that. And then let's see. There's a bit of a concave, so a lot of times I would have drawn the eyes like that with a straight line, but I'm seeing actually there's a curvature. And that's pretty cool because I'm sensing that that's giving you an idea that there's some cheeks here. You see, so that's a nice little detail that helps give a little three-dimensionality to what would otherwise be a pretty flat eyes, I think. Because eyes are probably one of the most important parts of stylization when it comes to Dragon Ball Z. Like the eyes are so distinctively DBZ. And then I'm trying to figure out, okay, how close are the eyes to the middle? Maybe somewhere around there. Again, I'm actually not worrying if this is going to look like a good Goku, but what am I actually learning? That's the most important thing. So the nose has a kind of curve shape, which is interesting because usually I've seen it like this shape. So an L and then like a diamond around it. So this is actually a bit of a curve and something like that, and then you have the shadow on one side. So let's go ahead and try that out. Nose is quite small. You've got these under the cheek line. Sometimes they look different, but we'll just go with what they look like here. It's kind of... And then you'll see, like, after this, I'll draw it more, like, freely. And actually, I'm seeing that the mouth is really close to the nose, so I made it too far away, and that was looking a little strange. The mouth's actually like that. There's the emphasis, there's a little shadow right here in the corner, right? But I'm not going to include the shadows yet. And then the chin is kind of like a little bit of a, a little bit rougher lines like that, as opposed to just one clean line. And this isn't looking exactly right. I think that the angle of the eyebrows is one thing. I think they can be more angled. And if you guys aren't familiar with Sketch Practice Diaries, it's just me figuring things out and sharing what I'm coming up with. This is a more informal, it's not quite a tutorial. You might have figured that out already, but I hope that there are like the things I figure out and the tips I learn are helpful. And I'm hoping that you're sketching along too and figuring out your own things and enjoying the process. So that's what I like to do on Sketch Practice Diaries. I've done one on wizards and one on what else? What other Sketch Practice Diaries episodes do we have? Yeah, I'm not sure. But I've done a handful of them. And they're quite fun, and I think that, there's some helpful tips in there. So let me know if you like this format or if you have any ideas on ways to improve it. Because, I'd be happy to do more when I'm practicing, to kind of share my thoughts. And one of the things that I learned from, I think it was Frank Frazetta, or someone who was watching him, is that he just talks to himself the whole time. So, hold on, right here I'm thinking concave. Look how convex, like how much sticking out this line is. And look at where this one goes all the way up to the ear. It actually forms a little vector, which is interesting. Usually you want to avoid those, traditionally. It's like this one's got two. I mean, that looks way too thick, but I think it's because I made the face too wide. So this is what we're learning here. But yeah, Frank Frazetta actually like talked to himself as he would paint. He's the one who did like a lot of these Conan and high fantasy, and he's a very famous artist. If you haven't heard of him, you can look up his work. I would recommend it. If you're into fantasy especially, he's very influential in that field. And he'd be like, I don't know what he would say. I'll have to look up the document, but probably something like, okay, and then, this neck is bulging out because it's, um, so strong and thick from taking so many punches to the face. And then we've got these protruding sternocleidomastoid muscles as well. Like, I'm not exactly, but basically like talking through his process. And so it can be very, I think that's actually a really cool strategy to use. So now that I've kind of followed along and done this much, I can take a look, take a step back and kind of look at it, compare side by side. and see what is working and what is not. So the eyes, first off, look too big. That's the first thing that comes to mind. So let's make them a little bit smaller. The eyebrows look not dynamic enough. You know, like they need to actually be sticking up more. If I was to take, let's say I take my liquify brush, I actually think that doing something like this, and I always kind of feel it's better to redraw it because you're going to get more out of that. But even like just kind of squishing the face together, that almost feels like it's more on point. Now the ears are looking way too big, and I'm noticing that I have the ears stick out here. This part's too long. This actually goes right in there. Something more like that. Cool, so now that I've kind of gone, you know, slowly and really observed, let's do a bit of the hair. The hair is so important. That's the other biggest, most distinctive thing. And I feel like the hair warrants a, you know, like an episode in and of itself. But I'll just kind of get a quick, let's see what I can gather quickly. So I'm seeing that there is a hairline right here. So I'm guessing that if the hairline kind of would go like that, and I'm seeing that I think I made the head a little bit too big in general. Feels a little wide there if I'm imagining like a skull and stuff underneath. So maybe I shorten that up, and let me just erase the ears and put a smaller ears because those ears are looking enormous. And there's another tendency I'm realizing is to make the ears too low and too big. So I won't go too much into detail, but I'm just kind of keeping into mind, okay, next time I draw a DBZ character, let me draw the ears a little bit smaller. Let me draw them a little bit higher and see how that looks. And then I want to get, how is this distance? The forehead. I think I made it a little too high, which I think is also a tendency. And just because I do it once doesn't mean it's a tendency. But I think that like your natural first response is going to usually, you know, kind of give you an idea, a clue about how you tend to do things when you're, and if it works and if it's not, it's something to take note of, especially if it's not working, because then you can be like, okay, cool, I can change that. Just remember, make the foreheads a little bit lower. And I'm going kind of really rough here. Because like I said, I think the hair, there's so many little hairs, but I'm going to try to just focus on the big shapes and try to understand what's going on a macro level for now. And then I can get into the individual shapes as I improve my skills. And I should actually, I want to look up some, we'll go to another reference image soon. I want to actually look up one that's done by Akira Toriyama himself. Go back to the source materials. And so what's going on here? So we've got these little ones. So there's a little one here. I'm noticing that there's a kind of a pattern. Zoom out a little bit. It's crazy how big the hair is, but it still looks kind of like normal might not be the right word, but it still really works and doesn't feel too top heavy. So like right now I'm drawing this and I'm like, gee whiz, this hair looks gigantic. How could I make that look normal on this character? And the one thing I'm actually noticing is as I'm talking about this and as I'm doing this, I'm drawing a little more mindlessly. I'm not thinking as I'm drawing there. I'm kind of copying, but I'm not taking in like, why is this this? Why is this there? So now that I'm thinking more, I'm seeing that, oh, there's hairs on the front. So there's this set of hair. Let's actually color them in a second. It could be even bigger. It's really hard to tell. This one may be too far out. So the tallness can work a little bit more than going too wide. If it goes too wide, it just looks a little crazy. But if it's going tall, it's like it's rising with the wind, I guess. You know, with the chi, it's rising up there. Cool. So it doesn't look fully right, and again, I think that the hair is going to be its own challenge. But it's definitely in the right direction. And then so one thing I want to do is break this down a little more so I can understand rather than copy. And so what I'm going to do is let's show you visually. Like I could think about this in my head, but doing these videos could be a nice way to actually take it to that next step and visually represent what I'm seeing. So let me actually put that in the layer below. So I'm seeing that there's 3 levels of hair, 3 tiers, if you will. One, then a little bit further back, you have this tier. I think it might just be those 2. And then the rest are like the background tier hair. Like all this is one, almost, not one shape, but I could almost think about it as like the one background silhouette shape. Dude, Rainbow Goku. That's, I mean, the way the DBS is going, we very well might get a Rainbow Goku. I mean, what's past Ultra Instinct? Rainbow Saiyan, rainbow form, like. So cool. So let's do a quick redraw of this, and then let's go to an Akira Toriyama sketch and Dragon Ball Z Toriyama. You know what? So I'm just going to go ahead and group this. So I'll make a new. And now let me just draw a DBZ character. Yeah, his guys can be a lot cuter with these different eyes, you know. But okay. So let me just try to like redraw what I just kind of had going there. We're going to need to put a lot more room for the hair, so I'm already learning how big that hair is. And then I'm learning this angle, and I saw that it actually has a slight concave. Okay, I'm starting to learn the difference between those. Concave shape. Let me not worry too much. Let's kind of, at this point, I think it would be better to do a few, you know, keeping in mind what I've learned, but not being overly nitpicky. Instead, like do more iterations. This is actually something that I learned from a podcast about learning is the rats, and then, you know, who are we to say we're any better than rats when it comes to learning something? Learn fastest when they repeat, whoever does the most repetitions. Whichever rat does the most repetitions learns the fastest. And it's not even about like the quality of the repetitions or anything like that, really. It's just about how many they do. And I think there is, like, you know, I'm sure quality does play a role, but like the repetition seems to be the biggest factor. And I think mindful, if you can bring it, mindfulness, and then urgency is another thing. So if something's important to learn, then you'll be much more, your neuroplasticity will be activated. So like draw DBZ characters like your life depends on it, and you will draw GBZ characters. So like if my life depended on this right now, I'd be like, oh my goodness, these eyes are not working. I need to fix them before I am done for, before I'm taking off this earth. So let me draw with a little more urgency there. I think this was something like that. And again, I think the whole face is squished down. So let me actually go ahead and, again, this is just practice, so I don't have to be precious about keeping anything. If it doesn't look good, I can erase it or just start a new one. So let me try if I bring the whole face down a bit. Remember there was that little dip here. Cool. I think this is starting to look a little bit more accurate. And I think there was actually more room under the chin. So let me go back to my own drawing. I should have kept the reference up. Yeah, see the mouth, and there's like a much bigger chin than what I'm got going on here. So that's interesting. And it's not necessarily that the chin is bigger, but I think that the nose and mouth are higher up. Maybe something like that. Something going on there. I'm kind of remembering, where did the eyes go? And I'm definitely making some improvements. Now, the thing is, I'm sure you guys can see things that I'm not seeing. I'm kind of still copying, and it's interesting because once I get to the chest or the parts that I didn't copy, I would just be making stuff up. But everything else that I'm doing here, I kind of remember talking through how these sternocleidomastoids muscles are sticking out. I remember this kind of bent shape here and how this one was further off, coming right under the ear, but this one was a little bit further over. So doing a copy, like a blind copy after your main one, where you're just kind of connecting to what you have in your head, and I probably should have kept the reference saved so I could go back to it and re-reference, but that's okay. Remember, there was one coming down, there was two. This one was coming down over the ear. And if I hadn't done this again, I don't think I would remember all these details. This one was smaller and it had a little break in the middle. And remember, these were all in the front. So we got our front tier hairs. And then we've got our silhouette. So actually, let's do the silhouette and then we'll do the middle tier hairs. So remember, there was one side had a little hair like that. I can't remember which side. But also not to be afraid of making the hair too big, but not too wide. I think that was an important lesson. And then this one actually they didn't have the small one on the bottom here. So maybe something like that. And then there was the middle tier hairs, which just had like two hairs in there. I think I'm going to leave the hair at that for now because I didn't really study it further. And I don't want to make, there's definitely, I think it's super important to get creative and make your own stuff up. But right now I'm trying to study the style. So I'm actually trying to put my own stuff to the side and try to absorb what I can from this. And eventually I will bring it back into my own style. Can I get back to this? Yeah, let's look at this real quick. So again, the eye placement isn't quite right. Let me go over it. What would I do differently? The eyes are actually less angled, so I overcompensated. And the eyes would be, and if the bottom of the eye is less angled, it's a little more flat. Let me actually try a different brush too. Sometimes switching up what brush or tool you're using can be a good way to kind of open up your style, or see things a different way or try things a different way. And in doing that, but keeping the eyebrows the same angle, now I feel like I'm getting closer to capturing that kind of the extreme eyes there. And the cool thing is too, it's like Goku looks serious without looking evil. And that's a tricky little thing. That's a tricky thing to do, to have the eyebrows down without looking. So I kind of feel like I captured it there. So maybe actually a little bit less of the curve. So I think when it's like this, it's more evil. Right? But when it's like this, it's a little more just kind of squinting, or not squinting, but you know, given that look, that I'm ready to fight, I'm serious look. Yeah, that does look a lot better, I think. Just making that one change on the eyes. Still a lot to learn, but let's move on to another study, because I think another important thing is to not get too stuck in one thing. Like, I'm trying to learn the Dragon Ball Z style. I'm not trying to learn to draw this specific character from this specific view in this specific, you know, pose and art style. Though I think that there is a lot of benefit to learning that as well. And let's just put in the pecs real quick, so at least we have a little bit more so what's it called? Like, it's not just floating in space. What is it? Context. We have a little more context. Kind of just see, okay, I'm seeing this three-part thing with the clothes. There's one little bump and a big one over here. Cool. I won't work too much on that. But definitely seeing, and then there's this, okay, cool. Definitely noticing some new stuff. I forgot there's a little Adam's apple hinted at in there. Perfect. So let's go back and check out our Toriyama. Maybe we can do like Super Saiyan Trunks, let's say. Because he's going to be similar enough. So right now I'm looking for variation, but like with enough similarity that like I'm still in the ballpark of learning the same stuff. So actually here's the Super Saiyan Goku. It's not the highest quality image. It would be nicer to have a little higher quality image. Can I work with this? Let's see what they have in the suggestions. Super Saiyan Trunks. So this straightforward one could work. It's not my favorite though. Choosing good reference images is something that I have undervalued. And I think that it's something that I want to look at. So actually, maybe I should look at Goku again. I don't think this is Toriyama, but it does look pretty true to form. Like pretty DBZ-esque. And it does give me the hair and the face, you know, the same Super Saiyan hair, so I can get another take at that, and then just at a slight different angle, so I can kind of see what's going on three-dimensionally. So you know what, let's not overthink it. Let's go for that. So one thing I'm noticing is that the head is slightly tilted back, so that's a good indication, you know, a good thing to notice right off the bat is the orientation of the head. The other one was straightforward, which is a nice way to start, but you can get a lot more attitude sometimes with just a slight tilt of the head. That's a big thing. And I want to notice that the nose is actually coming off a little bit, because that's something I wouldn't have done, and I think it adds a lot of depth. So that's going to be a struggle for me to figure out how to convey this nose as it's coming off. And again, I'm not making the chin big enough. So I'm starting to realize not having the chin big enough is another one of my tendencies, or the mouth is too low on the face. So let's actually overcompensate and put the mouth higher than I would think makes sense, and it's probably going to end up right where it needs to be. And also further to the left, to the edge of the face. You know, this is challenging me here. So I need to actually, there we go. Now I'm kind of seeing what the head is doing. Okay, and then really squishing that eye in there. It's surprisingly squished. I'm going to need to actually make a new layer and lighten this up to try to see. It's interesting because the eye doesn't look that squished in the image, but what I'm trying to accomplish makes it seem like it is. So maybe it's because the face kind of comes out more over there. Seeing this little shape below the nose. It's a little extreme on mine. Let's trim that back. Yeah. So this drawing might be an example of how to not get frustrated. Because right now it's like this isn't working. I was going in this with a lot more confidence, and now I'm just like not feeling it. So how do I continue? Well, like I said, let's not worry about how things are looking, but rather be concerned with making good observations. So coming back here and seeing how big is that eye compared to the eyebrow, how far past the eye does the eyebrow go? So it looks like it goes a little further than I was making it. Let's see, what can I learn from this shape here? It's kind of delineating the cheek again, so that's something I want to keep in mind, is that this shape is kind of going to give us a feel for the cheekbone. And then one thing I'm looking at is this angle, the mouth angle is actually going further down. So comparing angles, and how close does the mouth get to that bottom of the nose, even though that looks weird to me, that's where it is on the painting, so cool. And it actually, now that I put that line down, it's actually fitting. How far over does this shadow start? Something around there. Let's put that down. So I'm not a big fan of just copying, because you can just kind of, I won't say mindlessly, but like methodically without analysis, copy a drawing. And if you build up that skill of being able to see, like, okay, how what angle is this, what angle is this, how long are they, how do they relate to each other? And that's an excellent skill to have for sure, and one that I could definitely do in developing. But for me personally, I really like the idea of having like a real intuitive sense of what's going on, and starting to and being able to understand it is a little more valuable for me than being able to copy it perfectly. And I think it's a faster way to learn. But I think the copying it perfectly, like once you understand the form, like I think you can go back and forth. So once you understand what's going on and what you're trying to accomplish from a theoretical level, then going back and copying lines exactly within the understanding of like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. It's not just abstract shapes in my mind. Like I get that this is the trapezius muscle. Like this is a weird muscle right here. I don't even know if that's, oh, okay. So I'm guessing that this is all like kind of a huge sternocleidomastoid is what is being conveyed here, like that, right? But it's doing so, and then it has this head where it attaches. So it's interesting. It's stylized, and I'm not sure I understand that part, but I can copy it, kind of try to understand it as best I can, and maybe I bring that into my own style, or maybe I don't, if it doesn't really make sense to me. Where does the neck come out of the chin? Right here at the tip of the chin. What's the angle there? So that's interesting. This is more of this kind of an angle. I would have made it more like that, but having it come out in this way makes the neck feel thicker and stronger. And also lets the chest stick out further. So instead of just copying that line, I'm wondering what is the reason for that line being at that angle? Especially if he feels counterintuitive to me, especially if it's not the angle that I would have drawn the line on. You see? And yeah, this is looking okay. Like it's definitely kind of looking generally like a Super Saiyan Goku, right? So let's go ahead and do the hair. I won't go and draw the body. This will be for Sketch Practice Diaries Drawn D&D Part 2. I'll have to go into the hair, and I mean I'll go into the muscles. So let's stay focused. I think that's an important part of learning to draw anything, is to decide what you're practicing and then stay focused on that, which is exactly what I'm not doing now. I'm just finding it very fascinating how these all wrap, wrap, wrap. Like they all kind of like wrap into each other. So it's something I definitely want to study and understand better. Again, it's also adding context for what I've drawn so far. But I think once I start going down this road, I'm going to kind of lose some of the things that I've already learned, because I'll have too many, overloading my mind with too much new information. I'm going to start saying like, okay, this pec does not look right. It's like, okay, why doesn't it look right? And of course there's work to be done there and things to figure out, but let's get the head looking right and then let's move our way down. Or if I wanted to do a full body practice, let's keep the shapes, I should have kept the shapes very simple so that I can focus on bigger picture stuff rather than individual line details. But I've kind of already committed to the face. So let's go up here and let's see, how high is the hairline? Is it a little bit lower than this one? Actually, the hairline looks like it's much higher than I expected. So maybe tells me that the hairline is more of a stylistic choice rather than something that's consistently conveyed in this style. Like it's more what's going to look good rather than a formulaic type of thing. So this hair is overlapping, and then we've got this string of hair. It's always going to be at least one string of hair coming down over the eyes for SSJ Goku. So we're drawing all the front hairs right now. Something like that. It's not perfect, but we got two here. That's an interesting one. And it's kind of interesting that you can see where the skull would be. There's an indication of that. And then from behind, and that really kind of drives home the point of like there's this back area of the hair. So we've got, this one might have actually been part of the middle hair. So maybe this one only has two strands for the front. As we made it before, I think the front ones were pink. And this would be green. So these would be like the middle, the second tier, and then the back would be this kind of a vibe. Gee whiz, is that hair really that big? It can't be. I think it is though. It's so crazy how like sometimes what your eyes see is not what's really there. Like actually it would be great to measure this. I could take a screenshot and overlay them, but I think it's about what visually looks good. So let me see if this actually looks good. Like zoom my eye out. And one way to do that too is to both flip the canvas, which is something I haven't been doing, but that's a great way to do it. And then also to like look at something else and then come back. So let's look at our earlier drawing. And I'll show you, like if I was just kind of studying the muscles without getting into details, I'd do something like this. There's this muscle, here's a shape. How would I break that shape down? Looks like this kind of keeps going, and then there's a bump here, and then I would continue to like refine what those shapes look like. Looks like. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the video because I am losing my ability to speak in my native tongue. Okay, and now that I've actually gone and done the body and looked back, so that's another thing when you're doing a piece, to jump around to different parts of the piece. I'm actually like, you know what, it actually does look pretty reasonably sized. It looks like it's actually the right size. This looks like it's feeling like it should be a little further back. And then, yeah, this is good because I can see that this lines up with the tip here, which it does in the picture. It might even actually be a little bit bigger. And then this piece kind of continues the line here. So kind of where can I see, like if the line continues, where does it go through to? And this is actually a really good drawing technique too. So looking at this one actually connects there if it was to continue. And that creates some consistency and like a visual flow. And this one actually is leaning back a lot more. So everything is pushing back a little further than I expected. Alright, last thing we'll do with this video is just redraw what I just drew right now. And I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I don't want to leave it without redrawing it. Even though I'm kind of tired, even though I'm a little feeling my focus is a bit fatigued, is having that final redraw to integrate what I've learned, push my mind. My neurons forming new neurons here. So I'm just going to look at the face again, try to be like, okay, I'll try to remember. And I'll go into a new image because I don't want to look at the same reference. Let's see. We can hang out, not with Master Roshi, he's freaking me out over there. Let's hang out with a regular old Goku and all the Saiyans. Oh, that's a cool. Oh, I would love that poster. Someone please buy me that poster for my birthday. Okay, so I remember the head was tilted back. It's one of the first things. And that the face was squished over to the left was more turned than I expected. I remember that the chin is a little bit bigger than I was than I would tend to do. I don't remember the jawline, how it exactly worked, so I'm just going to kind of put something in there. And then I remember the nose comes off, so this actually might be more over. Nose comes off, and then this comes out a little further than I thought to make room for the eye. And the nose actually sticks out a little bit. Then the mouth, tilting down, it's almost touching the nose there. And then there's just you with the chin, and that was a little bit inwards. So it's like, see, all those little details I would not have remembered if I had stopped drawing now and then come back tomorrow. I don't remember which way he was looking. I think he was looking like that. It doesn't look right. I think the nose is a little bit smaller to get the eye lower. Maybe around there. This eyebrow came out further than I expected. There was more length on the right of the eyebrow than I expected, like past the eye. And this is actually coming out all right. And then I remember we talked about this weird shape right here. So that was actually, see, the things you talk about more, and then how this leans back. Things I talked about more, so going back to the Frazetta thing, actually stuck in my mind more. I think engaging more senses in general can be very helpful. Okay, and this is kind of giving an idea of the cheekbones or cheek area, so just something to keep in mind. I think I made the nose a little too big here. Let's not worry about it because, I don't want to overthink things. And then actually, if I make the nose smaller, move the mouth up higher to keep that same distance that I've learned about. And it's kind of working. It looks a little bit different, the facial expression, than what I'd like. Let's erase this. But it's in the ballpark. It's in the ballpark. And then I remember remember that the shoulders kind of all go in, right? Like they're all wrapping around each other, and then there's a little one here. So I did learn something there about the chest muscles, but I won't go too deep into that. But it's good again to take a break and look away from the face and then come back and see if you notice anything you'd want to change. So now I think I've overcompensated and made the chin a little bit too big, but that's good because that means that I'm learning and that I'm growing. I may have made the neck a little too big too, but that's okay. Let's keep moving. Let's continue to develop. And always kind of bear in mind that even if you make a small improvement, that's still, a step in the right direction from where you started. So I remember there was one piece of hair that came down over the eye. I'm trying to remember if it came from the middle, like that, probably, because then there were these two hairs that came, two chunks of hair that came off like that, and then one big chunk. Don't remember the exact angle it took, but something like this. And then you actually couldn't see the hair here, which I was surprised about, because this one almost follows that line from the face. It goes up like this, and then actually let's draw all the hair from the back before adding the middle ones. So there was something like that, and then like the big one comes like that. And I remember it came all the way back to aligning to this little point. Maybe something like that. It's like, wow, this is looking crazy, but that's all right. Definitely making improvements, Can't expect to be perfect after just one practice session. I'm definitely feeling more confident, and I remember this continued. It made an L. I mean continuing loop shape to get back to that middle chunk of hair, middle tier. I'm gonna erase that out. I think that was it. Was that the only middle tier hair? Yeah, and there was like a line like that. So it's like, okay, cool. What would I change here? One of the big things I would change is the face and the chin don't feel like they're fitting right. So let's actually go back to the picture that I did. And what do I have? I actually squished the nose a little too much. So let me go ahead and work on that. It's an easy one to change while it's fresh in my mind. Let the nose be a little bit lower. Oh yeah, that's already looking better. And then the mouth. Let's look at the mouth shape. Okay. That's an important one. So the mouth shape, instead of having him pout, it's got one down here, one like that, and then one. And that's already looking much better. That small change made a difference. Cool. I think I'm going to leave it like that for now. I might start I wonder if I'll start a Pencil Power Instagram. I'll probably wait, but I would love for you guys to send me your drawings. So you might know about my other channel, Pen and Blade, so at pen_and_blade. So if you're on Instagram, definitely tag me and share that there. I'm also going to start posting on my personal account. But anyways, my point is, love to get connected, Love to see your artwork. Maybe I'll start a Discord. Let me know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, an art Discord where we help each other out and I can do draw overs and such things, or any other ideas you have of like what would be the most fun way to connect, improve our art skills, and grow together, because that sounds great. And until we meet again, I hope that this episode. Oh, yeah, his hair needs to be bigger. His hair needs a little bit more. Pencil pow. Cool.